I think you're quite pretty. This is Helga's boyfriend, and as the title suggests, Helga gets a boyfriend. And no, it's not Arnold as much as some shippers might like. It is Stinky. And no, she hasn't suddenly had a change of heart, but Helga believes that if she dates someone else, it'll make her seem more attractive and get Arnold to notice her. So she decides that, to ask Stinky to be her boyfriend, saying, I'm basically just hiring you and using you, and Stinky agrees. And it doesn't work. Nothing Helga and Stinky say or do together gets Arnold's attention, which in some very amusing attempts. But so Helga decides to break up with Stinky and just go their separate ways. But the downside is, the one thing Helga didn't count on is that Stinky actually developed an attraction to Helga. And now he has all these feelings for her. So Helga, being the generous person that she is, rejects Stinky. And doesn't hear him out at all, or try to make it work. She just goes her separate ways. But then, eventually, she feels bad, tries to make it up to Stinky, but by then, he's moved on and is dating Gloria. And Helga's all single. Cue the All By Myself song. And this episode, I guess, would count as a Stinky episode. I mean, it's technically a Helga episode, but it's also one where we feature Stinky prominently. And as far as a Helga Stinky episode, it's cute. It's nice to have someone besides Helga dealing with romance, because, crushes are something we all deal with in life. It's not just a girl thing in elementary school. Like, boys deal with it too. I had my crushes when I was younger. So it's great that the show's willing to delve into someone else besides Stinky having a crush. And again, Stinky's kind of going through similar emotions as Helga. Like, he has a crush on someone, he wants to admit his feelings, but he's afraid of rejection or what will happen. And it's nice to see someone other than Helga going through that. And someone like Stinky who is a bit more innocent and more likable. And it's one of those where I can kind of relate to both characters. Like, I can relate to Helga's desire for a relationship. Particularly the scene at the end where she's in the movie theater and she sees all those couples sitting there and she's all by herself. Cue the music. It reminds me of when I was little, and when I was in elementary school, middle school, or even high school to an extent, or even up until recently, I'd see a lot of couples, and think, wow, they look really happy together. It would be really awesome if I were to meet someone, and eventually I do meet someone. Now, when I see couples, I just think, I miss my girlfriend. Again, it's interesting to see Stinky finally get the spotlight, because he's a character we really haven't gotten much insight into. He's just sort of been there in the background. I like that we get to see his house, and I love that his house is this rundown little house with southern country folk parents who all have the same kind of shaped head as him. It does make me curious, though, about Arnold's parents and, if they have football-shaped heads as well. Because his grandparents don't have it, so is it a trait on one side of his family, not the other? Is it a dominant trait? Is it a recessive trait from his other grandparents? Apparently the Jungle movie is going to explain why Arnold has a head, which kind of silly, since to me it doesn't need an explanation. The creators thought it was a cool design and they went for it. No more than that. Anyway, back to the episode. So, as far as the romance goes, it was a really nasty relationship that Helga and Stinky had, because they were dating each other for the wrong reasons. There was no solid foundation for Helga and Stinky's relationship. It was one of, let's just date because. So of course it's going to end poorly. They aren't friends. They don't have a genuine connection. They're starting dating, but they barely know each other. They barely are friends. And it doesn't help that Stinky really doesn't understand why Helga wants him to be his boyfriend, because there's instances where it seems like he does, because Helga will tell Stinky to do flirty stuff with her while Arnold's around, but I don't think he quite realizes the coincidences of the fact that all this happens to happen when Arnold's around. Again, Stinky really didn't like Helga. He was doing it because Helga asked him, and Stinky was, I guess, kind of this gullible person. And even the breakup was ugly. Like, Helga just blew Stinky off. Didn't matter that Stinky probably took her. She didn't really consider, like, how Stinky felt. And it is sort of this interesting contrast. Because, again, Helga and Stinky kind of are similar characters. They both have similar interests. Just in general in relationships, like, you should never just date someone just to get other people jealous. You're not dating them because. You're dating them as a means to an end. And there's no foundation. There's no, like, common interest. There's nothing there. I'm glad that Helga decided to go Stinky instead of Weiss and Ed. Like, imagine how heartbreaking it would be if she dated Weiss and Ed. I mean, first off, I think Weiss and Ed would be willing to go along, but I guess, but, you know, it would also break his heart since he probably clearly does have a crush on Helga. Although he clearly doesn't seem to mind the fact that Helga hits him, so maybe he wouldn't mind an abusive relationship with Helga, because that's what Stinky and Helga's relationship was. It was kind of somewhat abusive in that they were just sort of using each other. Helga was just sort of using him and not really regarding how Stinky felt. Like, she was making everything about her. And when we hear what her concept of a boyfriend is, it's kind of disturbing. Her concept of a boyfriend is a guy who takes her places and says nice things to her. You know, it's not like someone who makes you feel good about yourself, is there when you need them, yada, yada, yada. It's literally just all about me, and how I feel. And it makes me question whether or not Helga and Arnold would be a good couple together, because in the Valentine's Day episode, we saw this nicer side of Helga, the side of Helga where she's just being herself, she's being a bit more outward about how she feels about Arnold, and Arnold genuinely likes her back. And you think, okay, well, if we just drop the mean girl attitude, perhaps Helga could be a bit nicer. But, you know, then you look at how she explains a boyfriend is Stinky, and it's like, would she? For one, Helga she wouldn't have to be mean around Arnold, she could just be herself. And that Arnold, in response, could, you know, if Helga was ever getting out of line, that Arnold could set her straight. But we'll never know. I am hoping that Gerald and Phoebe are a couple, because there's little bits of them either standing together and interacting with each other, and it makes me wonder, like, are they a couple? Are they kind of interested in each other? Because after the Carnival episode, I was kind of wondering if they were still together, and if they are, I ship it. Alright, next episode is Crush on a Teacher. Not a whole lot to this one. Basically, there's a substitute teacher, and Arnold realizes that he has a massive crush on the substitute teacher. And he believes, through a series of misunderstandings and coincidences, that his teacher likes her back. So he decides, and through another misunderstanding, Gerald thinks that he accidentally overhears the teacher talking to the principal, and thinks that she wants Arnold to come over for dinner. And he comes over, and she has this dinner made, and candles, and music, and Arnold thinks it's all for him, but really it's for her fiancé, whose name is also Arnold. And it wasn't, again, there wasn't a whole lot to it. It's not my favorite episode, mainly because it just relies on the misunderstanding cliche, which I'm not too big on it, because, again, it relies on conflicts that are literally the result of characters being in the wrong place at the wrong time, not having all the information. And it's just like, really, Gerald just had to overhear that one bit of information, but he couldn't hear over the bit that Arnold's the name of her fiancé. Really, Arnold, you have to overthink it. I mean, it is interesting to kind of see a different side to Arnold. You know, he's shy and awkward and has all these feelings, but didn't we already kind of go through this in the Valentine's Day episode of Arnold meeting someone for a romantic dinner, and Gerald giving him lady advice, and it all kind of goes not the way it planned? I mean, it's weird. It's like, I'm not a fan of either, but I feel like the Valentine's Day episode a bit more happened, and it was a bit sweeter and heartfelt, despite Helga being Helga. Whereas this one was just for us kind of weird. And Gerald, you're not that great with lady advice. Again, not a whole lot here. Again, I really can't relate to this one much, because I didn't really have any crushes on teachers when I was in school. I always felt like they're older than me. And some cases they're like mothers who have a husband and children. It's kind of creepy. It felt kind of dirty. But, you know, it is that kind of awkward scenario, and I do like that the show dealt with it. A couple little things in this episode that I noticed. For one, we haven't seen Lyra in Arnold's class at all. Like, it could just be the episodes aren't being aired in the order intended, but yeah, where has Lyra been since she's introduced? Does she just disappear or something? She's like Ghost from Game of Thrones. Where are you? We haven't seen you most of the season. I also like how Arnold, when he's doing math and for the substitute teacher, like, you can actually see some long division problems on the board. I noticed in the credits that the guy who voices Grandpa Phil also voices Big Arnold, and I thought that was kind of interesting since they sound nothing alike. And I also found it interesting how when we see a shot of Arnold's class, there's an entire column of students that are literally just faceless students there to fill up space, which is interesting because in season 1, that's the role that characters like Curly took on. And now, like, we're at a point where characters like Curly and Stinky, and Rhonda, who were originally just one-note background characters, have now been fleshed out and have entire episodes dedicated to them. Now we have a whole slew of background characters that probably are never may get some character development, although I doubt it. And it is kind of cool, like, that moment where your original background characters are so fleshed out that you need to create new background characters. It's kind of interesting. So that's all I have to say on this episode. Other than that, we got to see Arnold, what he looks like when he's just wearing his undershirt, which I thought was kind of cool. So that's all I have to say. So leave your thoughts below on crushes with teachers and other classmates below, along with this episode, and I'll see you next time.